Welcome to this visit to Mumbai, or Bombay, India. Bombay is very well situated for its development. It not only has an excellent harbour, but it's on major trade routes on the Indian Ocean and the Persian Gulf. Consequently, the British East India Company bought the port in 1668 from the Portuguese. Here's a view of the original Bombay under the British India Company. Mumbai is located on the west coast of India. An excellent map showing the city in yellow. Bombay is actually on an island, being surrounded by Vasai Creek and Thane Creek. A satellite view of the island clearly showing Bombay. This is a Google map with the railway shown with yellow and red marks. The red marks are stations. I've been to Bombay 3 times. The first time in 1975 when I traveled around India for a month. The second time with my wife where we traveled India again for a month. And lastly in 1999 where I landed in Bombay for a short visit and a stopover on my way across Europe and Asia. The first time I visited Bombay, I didn't really know what to expect. I'd read a lot about the British settlement of India and had looked at some of the early 19th century postcards which show all the British development. Let's take a look at a few. Bombay streets overlooking the harbour in a very early photograph. This postcard's labelled a public building, Bombay. More public buildings with a lovely British fountain. St. Thomas Cathedral in Bombay. This is Green's Restaurant, a popular British dining area. And a variety of postcards showing famous public buildings in Bombay. More famous buildings. You notice that you don't see many people or many cars. It really doesn't give you a good idea of Bombay today with its population of nearly 20 million people. Government House, Bombay, in an early postcard. Well, we're coming in by plane in 1999. First thing you notice as you land is a considerable number of shacks surrounding the airport. The impression of modern Bombay is quite different than the postcards. Here's people drying laundry. The airport is modern enough and quite good. My first trip with my wife ended the trip around India, and we spent a fair bit of money to stay at one of the best known hotels, the Taj. It's located right next to the gateway to India, built by the British. The full name for the Taj is the Taj Mahal Palace and Tower. It's got an excellent website. The architecture combines Moorish features with the arches and more traditional British structures. I took this shot on my first visit to Bombay in 1975. However, I did stay in a backpackers further down the street. An early postcard of the Taj Hotel. It looks magnificent at night when it's lit up. When we checked in, I found that it's got a big central square with a huge pool, and you can spend your time just sitting around the pool drinking gin and tonics. You're totally cut off from the rest of India. The bedrooms, of course, were magnificent. One might like to think that Bombay or Mumbai is the central business district with wealth and high-rise buildings, much like New York. There are sections of the city that could lead you to this impression. One of the taller buildings, things do look modern. We decided to see more of the real India by visiting Crawford markets. There's a lovely old watchtower and clock at the markets. Porters, and I'll just go through a few photographs to give you the feel for the market. This man is selling pigeons. We'll move on to the Prince of Wales Museum. I'm not quite sure how to say its new name. It may be a product of the Indo-Saracenic style. Seems very popular with a lot of the British buildings built around the late 1800s and early 1900s, combining Indian ideas with the domes and arches of the Moorish Islam, along with Victorian towers. In this model, I can certainly see the domes and the arches, and you can see the British towers at the front. It's got an excellent website and also loads of things to see. I'll just scan through a few things to give you a feel. It's time to move on, and we stop at the street vendors. Let's take a look now at some of the people in Bombay. These two girls are brushing their teeth on the public street. Two Indian boys looking very happy, buying fruit from vendors. The local people are often very happy to get their photos taken. Down at the seashore, let's take a look at some of the older postcards showing street scenes. Here there's no cars, there's only two oxen and someone cleaning the street with a broom. An early shot of one of the main streets in Mumbai. Another old street scene before the days of cars. A much more recent shot showing the crowding and heavy population density. Now a few recent pictures of Bombay streets, a typical street scene. These taxis are very popular. These are the typical Indian taxis. A scene showing the heavy population density. Things get very crowded. Now a view of the Haji Ali Dargah. It's a very well-known spot in Bombay. The Flora Fountain is quite famous, here shown in an early British postcard. It's situated in the wealthiest part of Mumbai, South Mumbai in the Fort Business District and was built in 1864 to depict the Roman goddess Flora. It seems to have survived nearly 150 years quite well. Now a view of the hanging gardens, terrace gardens on top of Malabar Hill. You get a lovely sunset view of the Arabian Sea. Ways to get around Mumbai. One is to use these double-decker buses taken off from the British, I think. Most of Mumbai's citizens, however, take the train. Probably 6 million people travel on trains every day. The main station was called the Victoria Terminus, shown here in the late 1800s. It's an outstanding example of Victorian Gothic Revival architecture. A very early cover print of the terminus. The railway terminal became a symbol of Mumbai as being a major British port on the Indian subcontinent. We'll move along to look at the train system. Here's the electric train system. One of the many stations laid out through Mumbai, and a picture showing how incredibly crowded the train stations become. In July 2006, there was terrorist bombings when quite a few people were killed. This is a TV photograph of some of the damage on the trains. The Asiatic Society Library in Mumbai contains quite a few famous books, including some of Dante's. Once again, an 18th century picture of this famous building. Those steps don't look very promising for a wheelchair. In 1975, having traveled through Persia, or Iran as it's called, I'd read a bit about the religion of Zoroaster, and had heard about the Towers of Silence, where they bury their dead. They leave the dead for the vultures to feed upon. When we were traveling through Bombay or Mumbai, our tourist guide told us about the Towers of Silence. We drove by to look at them. Here's a 19th century engraving of the Mumbai one. A recent BBC news item notes that disease is killing off the vultures. Consequently, the bodies aren't being eaten in the Towers of Silence. And what they're doing is setting up solar reflectors so the bodies will decay at a much faster rate. On that note, I'll say goodbye and thank you for visiting Mumbai with me. Have a good day.